Further ado, Mike Diaper, Executive Director at Sport England.
Thank you, Yvonne, and good morning. I'm really delighted to have the chance this morning to talk to you about Towards an Active Nation, our strategy. I don't begin to believe we have all of the answers, and we certainly need the help of everybody in this room to make a reality of that ambition. I'm also very mindful that we are in the middle of an election campaign. Sport England always seeks to work apolitically, and it's really important I underline that today. So I am simply just setting out our existing strategy. That said, I really do think there is strong cross-party recognition and respect for the importance of getting people active and what that can do for the health, the economic well-being and the society we all live in. Our challenge is a big one, is that quite simply not enough of us are active. These are the latest figures from Active Lives, which were published in January. And it's great that just over 60% of the population are meeting the CMO guidelines of 150 minutes of moderate intensity activity. That's perhaps a little higher than we were expecting. But take walking out of that figure and it drops dramatically. That group is also not representative of society as a whole. What I really worry about is the other end. The over a quarter, 11.3 million people who aren't active. And when you unpick that figure, it really demonstrates some stubborn inequalities. When you look at the number of people in the highest NSEC groups, so the most affluent people in our society, groups 1 and 2, just 17% of that group are inactive. But drop right down to NSEC 8, the least affluent, and the figure goes up to 40%. That's massive, and something we've all got to be really concerned about. So our strategy, our vision, is to help everyone, regardless of their age, their background, their ability in playing sport or being active, to engage in sport and physical activity. And we've got to be honest, and those figures I just showed you from Active Lives show that's not what we're doing. The system can cater better for the already sporty, the talented, sometimes more focused on young people. And we have got to challenge some of that and turn things on their heads a little. So our strategy has some important shifts and changes in focus. You can see them listed on the slide. And the most important is that it's about sport and activity for a purpose. And let me explain what I mean by that. The government in Sporting Future, published in December 2015, set these 5 broad outcomes. It's really important to say that they are not just airy-fairy things we're aiming for. Each of them have hard-nosed measures. So physical well-being. We really do want to see the number of people who are inactive, so doing less than 30 minutes of activity each week, drop, and that's not easy to do. Things like individual development and social and community development, a little harder to measure, but we're starting to do that through Active Lives. So how confident do I feel as an individual to play my role in society? How confident do I feel, or safe do I feel in my community? And has being active and getting active played a role in doing that? And then we're set 2 tasks, and I'm going to be focusing on the first one today. More people from every background meaningfully and regularly participating in sport. And then just to go back to the shifts, because they are important. These are the things we need to change, not just us, but all across the country, if we are going to tackle inactivity. First, I was really delighted that we've removed the artificial separation of sport and physical activity and are going to see them now as one continuum. Because yes, you can use walking to get into activity. Maybe you progress onto going to a gym or swimming or a light jog. And then as you get older, go back into walking. And actually, if all you do is your 150 minutes through brisk, fast walking, that's fine. You get the health benefits. Our work and our remit has dropped down to 5+. I think that's really helpful. We've been asked to take a single approach to funding, measurement and evaluation and be partner neutral. So going forward, it's not who you are, it's what you can do in terms of those 5 government outcomes. And we're really putting the customer at the focus and using behavioural change. And I'll say a little bit more about that in a moment or two. I know funding and investment is really important. One of the big messages we got last year when we were consulting on our strategy was we had too many funds. I think we had about 30 to 35, way too complicated. So we're brigading all of our funding around 7 funds, 7 simple funds. And I'm going to pick up a number of them, but there's some exciting things. In Children and Young People's, the Families Money we will launch after the election. Focused on low-income families and getting intergenerational activity, I think will be really exciting. Our facilities work is up and running and open, and great things like the Community Asset Fund, really trying to look differently at how we get small amounts of money down into where they're really needed. A really busy slide, which I don't expect you to be able to read from the back, but it just gives you an idea of how our strategy is starting up and the opportunities out there. You can download that from our funding section of our website, sportengland.org. I want to come back to talking about customers and behavioural change, because this is really at the heart of what we're trying to do, putting the customer first. And what I mean by customer is, of course, all of the people who are active or playing sport now, but more importantly, all of the people who could be active if we just got the offer right. And so we've got to start by talking to those potential customers, finding out their concerns, their barriers, their needs, designing the offer for them, testing, going back and talking to them again, and being willing to redesign, change where necessary. This is a simple behavioural change model. It's not specific to sport or activity. We're all swirling around this in one place or another all of the time. This is what companies do to get us to buy one soap powder or one product over another. And when it comes to activity and sport, there's 3 behavioural groups and 3 big challenges we face. The first are those people who are largely inactive. And by doing something for these groups, we're going to have the biggest return on the government outcomes. It can be a high degree of challenge, can be very expensive here, but the returns are massive. The second group, and this is where the majority of people are, 60%, they have a revolving in and out relationship with sport. And what our insight has shown us is that even if you've done something once, twice, 5 times or more, that doesn't give you a resilient sporting or activity habit. It can actually take 90 days to 2.5 years to build that. And little things like it's too cold or it's raining or one of your friends calls up all too often take us away or disrupt our activity habits. And then the final group are the more resilient when it comes to sport. These people would probably still be doing a lot of sport even if we made it illegal. But we can't forget these groups. because actually life still all too often gets in the way. The big things which happen to us, moving house, starting, ending a relationship, if your children are leaving, things like that, disrupt our sporting habit. That's the theory bit of it. Of course, we have to see the whole person and understand them, because lots of other things do get in the way. Things like demographics. If you're somebody who is on a low income, you have less disposable income, of course you do. You have less time. Maybe you're doing 2 or 3 jobs, taking on a caring role as well. Also, because less people in your group, your friendship group, are active, it feels less of the normal thing to do, so a bigger ask to build it into your day. Things like geography matter. If you don't live near to facilities, that can be a real thing. If you're an older person living in sheltered accommodation or in residential care, you can't always get out and be active. You need activity to come to you. And our system doesn't always do that well. So we have to think about the whole person. I'd like to come on now and just look at 2 of the funding areas. I'm going to start with tackling inactivity, because that's the biggest challenge and it's probably the biggest shift in our strategy, and then talk about mass markets. We deliberately put tackling inactivity first because of the challenge. I hope I don't need to make the case for being active. The stats alone speak for themselves. 1 in 6 deaths, the same as smoking. The cost, slide says 7.4 million. It's actually 12 billion, sorry, billion, not million. 12 billion. We've got to move some of that resource up to prevention. And the good news is that really small things can make a difference. The chart there is the response curve for physical activity, and what it shows you is the first 30 minutes of getting somebody active is where you get the biggest health benefits. Of course, if you do more and head towards the 150 minutes recommended by the Chief Medical Officer, there are further health benefits, but they do begin to plateau. When we talk of inactive people, I think it's really important we try not to stereotype. I wonder if our minds, and we probably wouldn't admit in a group like this is where our minds go to, but it is where all too often we think. And the stereotypes are really not helpful. Of course, these people exist, need our help, and we do. But you can be young, thin, and incredibly inactive and missing out on all of the health benefits and storing up real problems for the future. You can be larger and still really active and getting health benefits. And actually focusing on the stereotype can be really unhelpful, because it makes the task seem mission impossible. I'm told that so many times. But when you break down and look underneath the 25% figure, the different types of people who fall into that, you begin to make the task more manageable. So, as I said, 25%, a quarter of the population are inactive. But there's 3 distinct groups, and this is probably the biggest learning we've got from our insight around inactivity. Yes, about 2.8 million, a quarter of the inactive population, is something like the stereotype. So really doing very little. And we do need to help those. For this group, the challenge is they know they need to be more active. They know they should be doing something, but it just feels so alien, so far away. There is then a group which just aren't doing enough in terms of the time, and that's quite small, just under 1 million. But by far the largest group, 2/3, 7.2 million people, are simply missing out on getting over the 30 minutes of activity and therefore not being inactive because of the intensity level. They're not quite getting their heart rate up or getting out of breath, or they're not doing it in sufficient 10-minute blocks. These people, when you talk to them, will tell you they're active. On average, actually, they're doing 4.5 hours of walking and being active. They live busy lives, doing more than one job. They're just not quite getting over. So the messaging for this, calling these people inactive, could be really insulting. And the challenge here is to get over that perception. And tools like Public Health England's new 1U app, which tells you whether you're walking briskly enough, or some of the apps begin to help us do that. Interestingly, in this group, there's lots of really former sporty people who really loved competitive team sports, and perhaps their bodies can't quite play rugby anymore or tennis. And they just think sport and activity is dead to them. Lots and lots of people in here who hated PE when they were at school, and being active just feels really alien, and we really need to help them to think of the simple things they can do. The good news is we're not starting from a blank sheet. These are some of the examples of our Get Healthy, Get Active pilots. There's some real common characteristics in what makes these successful. They're all multi-agency. They're almost always led by a non-sporting organisation, the successful ones. They design with the people, the audience, the consumers they're trying to work with. And the motivation isn't about getting active or even getting healthy. It's much more personal than that. A sense of, I'm feeling isolated and I want to connect and make new friends. I want to build new skills. I want to get out and do something for my community. And the biggest learning is you've got to design the offer from scratch. Don't try and push inactive people into existing offer. It rarely works. And I'll give you a moment just to read through the things which we're doing to tackle inactivity. The new dedicated fund is up and running. Active Ageing was the first round of those. We got a massive 720 applications. It's given us a real headache in wielding those down. We've currently got them down to 46. We could have probably funded 300 of those applications. They were so good and so interesting. They're going to give us some really great learning. The work we're doing with Public Health England around upskilling health professionals is also going to be really important. Finally, and very quickly, I'm going to come on to mass markets. This is about three things. It's about finding the next park run or sky run. It's where all of our digital work, and I think we've only just begun to explore, and we need lots of help from other sectors about maximising the power of digital. It's where our campaigning sits, and I'm sorry I couldn't resist but put some of the images from our latest This Girl Can campaign up. I hope you've seen these posters. They're going back up and the adverts going back on TV soon. This is all about tackling the fear of judgment or the lack of confidence many girls and women tell us they fear when being active. And the mantra is simple. It doesn't matter what you do, how you do it, where you do it, what you look like, what you're wearing. The fact that you are active is the important thing. And before we started This Girl Can, the gender gap at virtually every age range was over 2 million. We've seen that go down, not enough yet. It's gone down by about 500,000. So things like this are working, but we've got to do a lot more. Reminder that you can use all of our images on This Girl Can free of charge. All you have to do is go on and register. The only thing we do is ask that you take the same tone and embrace the campaign's ethos. That's been a real whistle-stop tour through our strategy. I'm sorry that I can't stay with you for the rest of the day. I'm not allowed during PERDA to debate and take questions. I'm sure the rest of the panel will be more than able to handle that. Thank you for listening. I hope I've given you some ideas. I hope I've inspired some of you to work with us and help create an active nation. Thanks very much.